You're listening to Exposed by the So Cultured podcast.
We're your hosts,
Liv, Yaz,
and Taz.
Three girls with a passion for science and tech.
Yep, and welcome to our thrilling new series.
This series, we are taking you on a journey to uncover the truth behind your fave TV shows and movies.
From the intergalactic adventures of Star Wars to the monstrous depths of the Meg.
And the chilling scenarios of zombie apocalypses.
Join us as we question whether these plots could ever happen in real life.
And reveal the scientific inaccuracies hidden on our screens.
And don't worry, we will still be dishing out the LaboraTEA this season with some even crazier listener stories than ever before.
So grab your popcorn for a side of piping hot LaboraTEA.
Before we get into it, remember that all opinions are our own and all our listener stories are alleged.
And now let's get into this week's episode of Exposed.
Hey, welcome back to episode 4 of the So Cultured podcast.
Welcome, everyone.
I literally can't believe that we're halfway through the season already. I think it has flown by and I'm loving it so much because I'm such a movie buff. I feel like I'm always watching the latest films. And I know not all of these films that we've been covering are new, but I've definitely learned some inaccuracies about some of the science that I've never really thought about in too much detail. I just love a good storyline. But we would love to know what you guys have thought of this series so far because obviously we're loving it and we hope you are too. Have you learned anything in particular? Please let us know because we want to see if you've found any inaccuracies that we haven't got or we haven't come across. And we just want to know in general, how are you finding it?
I'm going to give a spoiler to like next week's episode, but you guys know that next week I'm covering Star Wars and I was actually running through like all of the stuff with my boyfriend because he is a massive Star Wars nerd. So I was like, oh babe, I'm going to be covering this, I'm going to be covering that. And he was like, oh well, what about this? And he was like arguing with me about it. And that's what made me think as well, like I wonder if he would like watch the film and like pick up anything that we haven't picked up on, and how many of our listeners have probably been listening and been like, oh my god, but are you going to talk about this? Or do you know what I mean? Like there's probably so many things in every single film that we haven't covered, but I feel like we've said that in every episode. Like there are literally so many things that we could cover, but we're limited on time sometimes. But yeah, I'm genuinely like, I know we're only halfway, but I'm actually already pretty sad for when the season ends because it's been so much fun.
You know, like every season could just be us talking about a new film because there's so much out there. Whereas like trying to fit it into 8 episodes is very, very tough.
Yeah, I've had so much fun researching the films and then also actually finding out about the science and how close it is to the actual science in the real world and things like that. So I've enjoyed this series.
Yeah, because do you guys actually, I mean, yes, I know you said you came up with the series because you literally was like going through this thing. Where was it? Disney, right? Was it in Disney? You was going through the Avatar thing and you was genuinely like picking up on things. But see, I don't do that when I actually watch films or series. Like some of these films that we spoke about, I have watched and genuinely like I have not thought for a second about any of the science. So when I did the Planet of the Apes episode, I was genuinely like, wow, how did I not pick up on this when I actually watched the film?
I think that comes down to your area of science because I'm like complete opposite, but I think it's because a lot of like sci-fi is based off a release of viruses or so like a biological weapon or something like that. So it's always so relevant to me.
Yeah, that is true. Anyway, guys, question, because I was just driving home from my nan's this evening and I don't know about you guys, I think we spoke about this before, but I know I'm doing a podcast, but I'm not really that big on podcasts. I listen to music when I drive and I was listening to George Michael, who I absolutely love. He's like just my idol. And
love him.
I know, and I was actually talking to my boyfriend about him the other day and I was literally saying like I just would love to like hear new music from him, and it got me thinking about if there was one celebrity who you could bring back to life, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that is actually hard. I don't know, because one of mine would be controversial, so we're not going there.
Oh, go on.
Why?
Because people don't like him. I grew up listening to a lot of Michael Jackson and like people.
Oh, I love him. I was going to say Michael Jackson.
But then, you know,
is that
like,
controversial?
I feel like it is because people don't like him because of like everything that was going on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's controversial, maybe it's not. But he literally like has so much influence on, or had so much influence on my upbringing and my life and my family. And
Me too.
Literally just love pretty much. I don't think there's a bad song. So it would
No.
be really cool to hear like new music and new Michael Jackson songs. What about you guys?
I had someone ask me this the other day, and I came out with someone straight away, and now I can't remember. Oh, Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, because also the way that he died was so sad, and I feel like you need more time on this earth.
How did he die again?
AIDS. Yeah, because it was in the like HIV epidemic in the 80s. It is sad, and obviously he was like so good at what he did. So like we needed more from him, you know.
You know another one that we all didn't say? Amy Winehouse. Legend.
I don't think I was
Absolute
that much of a
legend.
big fan. I'd have said Whitney Houston actually.
I was gonna say actually, it's not a celebrity, but I would actually bring my dog back from the dead because he was a great pet.
I wish I could bring all of my pets back from the dead, to be honest. What are you laughing at, Yaz?
It just made me think of like Noah's Ark, like just having all these pets in your house. Like, how many pets have you had? Like, what are you gonna do with all these pets back from the dead?
I'm gonna receive and give love, and I will happily have like 30 cats running around my house.
Because I've had so many cats that they would just not get on if they all came back. Like,
yeah, true. They'd all be fighting. To be fair, once you've got like more than 3 cats, it is a nightmare. When I was growing up, I actually had 7 cats at once.
Oh my gosh.
Because my mum
I had
kept
a
going to
snake.
rescues to like get them, and then she'd like just come back with the whole family.
That's quite cute.
And it was shambles. They did fight a lot, but you know, they all had loving homes. So
Well, talking of bringing back creatures from the dead, that leads me on to today's episode where we'll be talking all about exposing Jurassic Park. Right, guys, today's episode is all about exposing Jurassic Park and really how far-fetched cloning dinosaurs would actually be.
okay, before we get into this, I have a confession. I actually don't think I've watched Jurassic Park. Not gonna lie.
This is so typical. That's such a Liv thing to say.
I feel like I've seen parts of it. You know, like when you were a kid and like your parents had it on and you were kind of like tuning in and out, because I can actually picture some of the characters. I can picture some parts of it, but I've never actually sat down and like watched it. So yeah, sorry to be that person again, but before we get into it, can we have a rundown of Jurassic Park?
Okay, this might be offensive to you, Liv, but if you've not seen Jurassic Park, you've been living under a rock. Or should I say fossil? Because that's actually borderline blasphemy.
I know, I actually am aware.
It's on TV every Christmas. Every Christmas, I swear I put it on and it's playing on some
I'm sorry, but can we
channel.
really quickly clear up that like in my household, we do not watch films on Christmas. Christmas is for drinking and playing Ring of Fire and eating. It is not for watching movies.
Yeah, but they're on in the background, aren't they?
Yeah, you put it on in the background and you drink.
No, we've got music on it. We've got George Michael on in the background.
What, just on loop? Last Christmas, Christmas.
No, literally.
I don't know how much of the population would actually agree with you there, Liv, but
I know.
each to their own.
That's okay.
But anyways, just to give our listeners a rundown, if they're like Liv and they haven't actually seen the films or not too sure on the premise, Jurassic Park was actually initially a novel by Michael Crichton, and it was adapted by Steven Spielberg into a movie which was released first in 1993. And since then there's been more Jurassic movies, but I'll just give the overview of like the OG one, because in my opinion it is the best and it's the classic. So the plot centers on a wealthy entrepreneur named John Hammond, and he's created a theme park on Isla Nublar, which is populated by genetically cloned dinosaurs. Hammond invites a group of specialists, paleontologist Dr. Alan Grant and Dr. Ellie Sattler, mathematician Dr. Ian Malcolm, and lawyer Donald Gennaro. Once on the island, they're given a tour of the park's facilities and witness the incredible living dinosaurs. However, there's a disgruntled employee, Dennis Nedry, and he shuts down the park's security systems to steal embryos for a rival company. And this security breach allows the dinosaurs to escape their enclosures, so the group splits up to restore the park systems and ensure their escape from the island while evading these various dinosaurs, including the intelligent velociraptors. And throughout the film, there's themes of like scientific ethics and I guess the dangers of genetic manipulation to resurrect an extinct species. And it's this science that we're going to expose in this week's episode.
Quick question. So like the film isn't about them making these genetically engineered dinosaurs, like they're already there, because I actually thought the OG plot was like how they brought dinosaurs back to life, but am I wrong?
No, they do like kind of cover the science and what they did to bring them back, and I'll cover that a little bit later and like how far-fetched it is and stuff. So they do cover that, but yeah, the main point of like the main storyline is them just being trapped in Jurassic Park with all these dinosaurs and like trying to escape them. But yeah, they do give like the science.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this episode because this is like one of my fave films. So unlike Liv, I actually have watched all of them, and I'm quite proud of it because like I used to want to be a paleontologist and even had a jumper that had dinosaurs on, and like this film just makes me really happy. But obviously this OG film was out in 1993, so some of that science could be a little bit outdated. Is there any of it that is out of date and there's new stuff that we know since the first film came out?
Well, it's funny you should ask that because when Jurassic Park first came out in 1993, it was actually a pretty groundbreaking depiction of dinosaurs in recreating what scientists knew about how dinosaurs looked and how they moved. And actually, the character Alan Grant, the paleontologist, was actually a bit ahead of his time, where he insinuated that dinosaurs were early ancestors of birds. But back then, the claim that birds evolved from dinosaurs was still quite controversial, but now it's actually widely accepted.
Oh, interesting. Because hasn't there been like new Jurassic Park movies come out, right? So like have they had to like change that in the newer movies then?
Well, we actually know a lot more about dinosaurs now, and I guess in answer to your question, the movies just didn't really keep up. So even in the latest installment, Jurassic World, it features dinosaurs that are like out of date. For example, just 3 years after the first Jurassic Park movie was released, scientists in China uncovered a feathered dinosaur for the first time, the Sinosauropteryx.
Damn.
What? That's actually so weird. I don't get it. Like how can they tell, like if it's fossilized, how can they tell that it had feathers on it? This is weird.
That's actually a really good question. Like, you're unsure about asking me that question, but that's a really good question because it actually takes really specific conditions. Basically, the animals have to be buried really quickly before they decompose in like a fine grained sediment. And it turned out that this part of China where they found them, the Liaoning province, saw major volcanic eruptions around 120 million years ago. And that provided these exact conditions. And more than 30 feathered dinosaur species have actually been unearthed since 1996, and this group of dinosaurs includes many of the dinosaurs featured in the Jurassic Park movies, like the velociraptors, for example. And a velociraptor fossil from the Gobi Desert actually revealed bumps on the forearm, similar to the wing attachments on modern birds, which means that they probably had wings. And then Jurassic Park 3 sort of nodded to the new research by giving the velociraptors a new little hairdo, but it's not really an accurate depiction of what we know now. So Jurassic World could have introduced feathered dinosaurs, but it didn't, and I assume for the sake of consistency, to be honest.
That's mad. So there's actually just like buried fossilized dinosaurs. Like they could just be all over. They could just be anywhere in the ground waiting to be found. That's mad. Why does that actually shock me? They're just down there. That's mad. But how do they know? They must know where to look, right?
You know, you can go in Dorset to like the Jurassic Coast and actually find fossils. Like if we went for a walk like tomorrow, we'd probably find fossils.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like a dinosaur, right? Like how are they still finding them? That's what I'm shocked by. Is like we haven't found them yet. So like they must be coming up with new places to explore, and like how are they coming up with like, or maybe we should check here, maybe we should check there. That's what I'm shocked by. That's really cool.
I think there's specific conditions that facilitates like fossilization more than other conditions. So I know there's certain types of rock which facilitates there to be fossils. I think slate or something, and like areas where there was lots of mud flats and stuff, and the dinosaurs obviously just died in this mud and then got like absorbed into the ground over time. Or actually as well, I think and don't take this as gospel to our listeners. This is just me like talking it out, but I think they find a lot of fossils where there used to be water, because like the sediment in in the bottom of lakes is obviously like, I don't know, not compacted, so the bodies will go into the sediment and then get compacted over time and then preserved that way. So I feel like the paleontologists know what rocks to look for, and then they typically search those places. I think
That's so cool.
It's cool, isn't it?
I feel like you guys always laugh at me for like being fascinated by stuff, but
no, I think it's good. I always found like dinosaurs and fossils interesting.
I've actually never really been that interested in them, not gonna lie. Like I just but it is actually interesting. I should pay more attention to other areas of science. That's what this podcast is teaching me, that I do actually find other areas of science interesting.
Yeah, so I actually didn't even consider that aspect and how accurate the actual depictions are of the dinosaurs, but I definitely think that is so interesting. And I do think feathered dinosaurs would be kind of like cute, but then creepy at the same time, because like big fluffy birds, like that's kind of fun. But I guess let's move on to the juicy part. So how did they recreate these dinosaurs in the film, and is it actually realistic?
Yeah, so in the film, the scientists extracted dinosaur DNA from blood found inside insects preserved in amber and used the genetic material to clone dinosaurs. And because the recovered DNA was incomplete and like a whole genome is needed to clone an animal, they actually completed the DNA genome using a living relative, the frog. Then, once armed with a complete genetic code, they implanted the reconstructed DNA into an ostrich egg.
So wait, what? When was the first genome actually sequenced? And like this film was from the 90s. So how would they have been doing that? Was it even possible back then? Or am I just
I'm sorry,
being
but
like...
can we backtrack even further than that? Because how do we go from blood inside an insect to a dinosaur? Like, am I...
Oh, like if they're
missing
bitten it, if
something?
it's like a mosquito or something that's like bitten
Oh.
a dinosaur, I'm assuming.
How do they get the insect and then like know that it's bit a dinosaur and the DNA's in there? What is happening? Am I dumb?
No, because like that is a valid question. I guess like from the time period, you would assume like this amber is from 100 million years ago, so the animals that are around could be a dinosaur, but it's also like it could be like a mammal, surely.
Yeah, like what if they went to all this effort, they cloned it, and then they just make like a pig?
That's a
You'd be
valid
gutted.
point.
No, what I'm guessing actually what they do is they probably like sequence the DNA and then check it against known databases, right? So they would confirm this is something that we don't know what it is, so it's got to be a dinosaur, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, you would check it, and it says that they combined it with the DNA of a frog.
They had partial sequencing, so even then it's like that's a bit wild. Like even within species, they're going to be so different, right?
Yeah.
Like within dinosaur species, it'll be so different. So then how are they jumping to filling in the gaps and then just being like, oh, now we have like a T-Rex or something? Like we know that these nucleotide bases are to do with like T-Rex or whatever. It does seem a bit crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so we can all agree that it seems like pretty far-fetched, right? And it kind of is. And there's a few flaws with this idea, but basically DNA in the grand scheme of things is fragile, and ultimately it decays too quickly to survive literally millions of years, even when trapped in amber. So the oldest ever DNA recovered is from the tooth of a 1,000,000-year-old mammoth preserved in the eastern Siberian permafrost. But still, when you're talking about dinosaurs, you're talking more than 60 million years. So that is way off what we've managed to do. And because of how fragile this DNA can be, sunlight, water, and even pollutants in the air can cause it to deteriorate faster. And while Jurassic Park depicts a scientist drilling a hole through the amber and inserting a long needle to suck out the contents of this like fossilized mosquito, DNA extraction, as like me and Yaz might know, and maybe Liv as well, requires a lot more precision. And you also have the added complication of airborne viruses that are full of DNA and RNA, right? So that might destroy the dinosaur sample before extraction. And The methods used in the film would have led to a significant amount of the dinosaur DNA being lost before it could even be paired with the frog DNA, which in itself is pretty far-fetched. Like, it's really hard to look at ancient DNA and just assume where the missing pieces are, like you said, Yaz. But they did get one thing right, and it is that no one has ever found intact dinosaur DNA. So it would have to be paired with an existing ancestor's DNA to work.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we're basically pretty far off from bringing back dinosaurs. But I guess, has there been any relevant research that's done that could suggest that maybe there's a chance to do this in the future?
Well, scientists are working backwards. So they're examining and altering genetic material into modern day descendants of the dinosaurs, birds, and reptiles. And in research published in Nature in May 2018, scientists compared the DNA organization of birds and turtles and actually concluded that they share a genome structure with dinosaurs by tracing it all the way back to a common ancestor of all three, a lizard-like animal that lived more than 255 million years ago. However, there are intriguing experiments that are already in the work, especially when it comes to messing around with chickens. So in 2016, researchers in Chile managed to grow dinosaur-like bones using the legs of a chicken, and American scientists have also modified beaks of chicken embryos and transformed them into dinosaur-like snouts. And then finally, there's a massive project led by paleontologist Jack Horner, who actually happens to be the inspiration for Dr. Alan Grant Horner in the film. And he has spent his career trying to reconstruct the dinosaur, genetically engineering chickens to reactivate like different dinosaur traits, such as dinosaur-like teeth, tails, even hands, similar to those on a velociraptor. And he calls the project a Chickenosaurus, which interestingly has been funded largely by George Lucas from like the Star Wars fandom.
What a babe. I love George Lucas.
Don't even know who that is.
Oh, I'll tell you all about him next week. He's like the inventor of Star Wars.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll tell you about him next week.
okay, exciting.
That's actually mad though. Like, I'm actually surprised they're allowed, like, they get ethical approval for these projects. Like, genuinely, I am surprised.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely sounds like we're still pretty far off. Other than dinosaurs, you mentioned that we have DNA from like the woolly mammoth. Could we potentially like bring the woolly mammoth back? Because like surely elephants, for example, are a close relative to the mammoth.
Yeah, I'm actually so glad that you asked this, because yes, we may actually have woolly mammoths roaming the earth. So there's plans to resurrect this almost, I think, legendary animal, which went extinct about 4,000 years ago. And it involves combining parts of its genetic code with living elephants, with the idea that de-extincting the woolly mammoth may restore the mammoth steppe ecosystem, which actually apparently could help slow the melting of permafrost in the Arctic.
Wait, that is actually mad, because also woolly mammoths are huge. And is it that we even want them roaming on Earth again? And also, I sometimes feel, as a biologist, I'm sometimes a bit like, if animals couldn't survive and they went extinct, like, how are they going to cope? Like, if they come back, do you know what I mean? Like, is it worthwhile bringing something back? You didn't survive the change in environment, so have you got a chance again? But I guess if they did come back, how could they actually restore the ecosystem? Because that is mad.
Well, if we're thinking of thousands of woolly mammoths, it could help restore the degraded habitat by like knocking down trees, fertilizing the soil with their dung, and subsequently encouraging those sort of grasslands to grow again. Or at least that's their sort of idea anyway.
That's mad. Can we get into how exactly they're actually doing this? Like, how do you bring something back? Because that sounds mad.
Yeah, so specifically to the mammoths, we obviously have like some well-preserved mammoths being dug out of the tundra, but no living cells, like obviously, are ever found. So they can't be cloned using the approach that produced Dolly the sheep, which was the first cloned mammal. So scientists have compared the genome to Asian elephant and identified genetic variants that equipped the woolly mammoth for the cold. So the dense coat of hair, the shortened ears, the thick layers of fat for insulation, and so on. So the next step is actually to use gene editing tools to rewrite the genome of that Asian elephant cell. And once edited, the team will then insert one of these mammoth elephant cells into an Asian elephant egg that has had the nucleus removed. And then fertilization occurs through a zap of electricity, and the egg should, in theory, start to divide and grow into an embryo. And then the embryo will be transferred to a surrogate mother to carry the fetus to full term. So essentially, these are not going to be exact copies of the extinct animal, but more like an elephant modified to survive the cold.
Don't know how I feel about that. That does just feel like, is that something we should be doing? Is that what we want? And if it's not going to be an exact copy anyway, like, what are they getting out of this modification, I guess? But anyway, I think we'll wait and see what happens. Is this research still ongoing? Is it?
Yeah, I think we're like a few years away from potentially seeing woolly mammoths. So I guess we'll see.
What? This is
I guess we
mad.
will.
This is actually
Damn.
crazy.
Yeah.
I would get it if they were if the purpose was to help elephants adapt better to like new environments as a result of climate change. That would make sense. But like, just to bring back woolly mammoths, like, could that not really disrupt like the current like food chain? I don't know. No, you said it would benefit. It could potentially benefit the environment. So I don't know. That's mad.
Okay, so shall we finish on one super important question? Have we actually managed to bring back an animal from extinction through science?
Well, kind of. So there were scientists that were able to clone and impregnate a surrogate mother with an extinct animal called the becado. However, it only lived for 10 minutes outside of the womb because I think it had like a lung defect. However, there is a California-based nonprofit called Revive and Restore, and it actually has projects underway to help revive more than 40 extinct species. So far, the organization has actually in fact cloned a black-footed ferret named Elizabeth Ann, which is on course to become the first cloned mammal to help save an endangered species. So the black-footed ferrets aren't actually extinct, and the hope is that Elizabeth Ann, who was created from cells frozen in the 1980s, will actually bring back much needed genetic diversity to the endangered wild colonies of ferrets, which are threatened by inbreeding because the populations are so small. So these scientists liken the de-extinction to rewilding efforts that reintroduce lost species to improve local habitats. And I guess their kind of motivation for doing it is to bring back extinct species that were driven to extinction by humans, basically.
Yeah, which would make sense. First of all, can I just say, what a sophisticated name, Elizabeth Ann. Like,
I
so
know.
Sounds like
posh.
royal family.
It does, doesn't it? Like, what a posh little ferret.
There was a really cute picture of her as well, and she was so cute.
Aww. Maybe we'll put it on our Instagram. So essentially, to round up, my kind of takeaway is that most de-extinction projects are really only able to be successful because we have either living cells or the entire genome from the lost species. Is that right?
Yeah.
And on top of that as well, a close living relative that can be both a genetic template and also a surrogate mother for the like resurrected animal. So if I'm taking all of that information, then in the case of dinosaurs, it is actually impossible to bring them back fully and like actually be confident that this is exactly what the dinosaur would have looked like and this is exactly dinosaur DNA.
Yeah, so essentially in the age of the technology that we have now, it is currently impossible, but as we know, science, technology always advances, right? So, but I guess the question, I want to finish on a question to you guys. If we did have the ability to bring dinosaurs back, should we?
That's a good question. I think no.
No, I want to say no, because like really what is the benefit? And like we didn't play a part in them going extinct. So they could cause so much disruption. I mean, like I said, I haven't watched the films, but I know of the films and I know like the whole plot of the film, like you said, is around everyone trying to escape the dinosaurs because they're going to be eaten. They're going to be... So like what are we going to bring them back for? They're just going to kill us.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't think we need to bring back dinosaurs. I think it would be very interesting to see if we had like the scientific capabilities of doing it. but like I think the cons just outweigh the pros, right? Like the only pro of bringing them back would be to just see if we could do it.
Yeah, and just to be like, this is what they look like.
And just because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it, right? It's not like,
Yeah, we are not
even
God,
with
like
the
I said.
scientific capabilities, I just feel like use your resources for other things.
I really like the idea of using it to help like extinct species though. I think that's a really cool application of it. Or like if you was to use it to help current species like adapt to, like I said, changing environments because of climate change, because we are literally the reason for climate change. So like if we can use it to help other species, like we should.
But I don't think there's a point. It's like you could use it, go to all this effort to bring a species back that's been extinct, and because you've not done anything to the species, you've not modified it, it's not like adapted to the environment, it's just going to go extinct again, because it's not like we're changing the root cause, which is changing the environment that you're putting it back in. So for me, it just seems like a silly system to be like, oh, we're just going to like bring it back, and then it's still exposed to the same changing environment. So like, yeah, it might be good to get more genetic diversity, but then that population of new genetics, or like the new gene pool within a system, is just going to cause probably more destruction. It might be that they're beneficial mutations that they then have, but it's kind of unlikely. Again, I wouldn't know unless I'm doing like a population study, but I just feel like it could go one of two ways, and I think it's probably going to be the bad way, that they just end up dying out. I don't know.
Yeah, so you're actually covering like, I guess, all the moral and ethical considerations for like whether we should do this, whether there would be even any point, because obviously like climate change is happening at a rate that's like unprecedented and everything. But one of the companies or the non-profit organization were actually speaking about editing the genomes of the endangered species so that they could adapt to the changing environments caused by humans. So they would literally give them adaptations to help them, I guess, evolve on a faster scale. So like, again, like is that right? Is that wrong? I mean, I don't know really.
I guess that's an interesting moral question.
Or you can introduce a new like mutation or adaptation, like you said, but like it's not like it's then just going to start evolving like crazy, because evolution is such a long process, right? So like realistically, that's not actually going to happen anytime soon. So I think
it's the acquired mutations that take so long to take hold in a population though. So if scientists are taking this population, like half the population of like endangered species, and rearing them with a specific mutation that allows them to adapt to like extreme heat or something else, something to do with the changing climate, and then reintroduce them into the population, then it's likely that evolutionary advantage is going to like take hold within the population a lot quicker. So that would be like the idea of why they're doing it and why they're specifically introducing these adaptations. So
I feel like we could have a whole like massive conversation about that, because then that's even like with environments changing, you're gonna like increase their like biogeography of like where they can expand to, and then that could like mess up other like downstream parts to like the food chain. And also I feel like the technology isn't there yet. Like we don't know a lot of functional traits that go on in species, so unless they're doing proper like fundamental biology to see what proteins are doing what, like they can't then specifically target proteins without knowing what their functions are. So a lot of functional biology, genetics, all of it would need to be done before you could just be like, right, we're going to target, you know, their pathway that adapts them to better like temperature, thermo, whatever dynamics.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as well, like the resources that we would put into that should really be put into preventing extinction and what conditions are leading up to the extinction of that animal in the first place, and conservation efforts and stuff instead. So, yeah, we'll finish on that note, because we've spoken a lot about bringing things back from extinction and how Jurassic Park is not very scientifically sound, if I might say, but obviously it makes for good entertainment. So if you guys listening would like to learn anything more about today's episode, we'll obviously leave all the links in the description. And we also have our poll as well. We want to know the answer to this. If you could bring back dinosaurs, would you? So let us know, because we are very intrigued to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Taz. That was so interesting. And even though I haven't watched Jurassic Park, well, I feel like now I should go and watch it. But yeah, it was
You
so interesting
should.
to learn all of that science. And with that, I have a listener story to read out. And today we're actually covering a topic in the LaboraTEA that we have not covered before. So I'm very excited for this.
Oh.
So let's get into it.
I'll slip into your dreams tonight. So give me, so give me your heart. I'll stick like glue inside your mind.
Okay, so we have an email in our inbox from a listener. So I'm just going to get straight into it and read it out. Okay, so it says, "Hi girls, firstly, I just want to say I absolutely adore this podcast. I wait every Wednesday for a new episode. And P.S. I am absolutely loving season 3 so far. I've been debating writing this in because I don't want people to figure out that this has come from me, but it. I need your advice so bad on this situation, so let's do it. So I'm a postdoc and I work in the field of genetics. And this is my second postdoc with my supervisor. And me and him, along with 2 other people in the lab, secured a, in brackets, very expensive grant last year to work on a gene editing technique. We began research on the project pretty much straight away because it was basically just a continuation of a project that we were working on already. As the months have gone on, I've noticed that several high value pieces of equipment and materials that we've ordered for the project have either been delayed or just never arrived. I approached my PI about this, but he has basically just brushed off my concerns, saying that the delays are probably due to the companies or the postal services. I didn't really think much of it, but one night I was working fairly late in the lab, and after several things had gone missing or not shown up, I'm not going to lie, I know I shouldn't have done this, but I started going through the orders and invoices attached to our lab and the grant specifically. Let's just say, basically, things are not adding up. Literally. So I spoke to the other postdoc about this, and she basically says that her and an RA in the lab have noticed this too and have heard rumors that he could potentially be funneling some of the money, as in somehow taking it for himself. For context, he has a few private companies attached to our research, so I think this is where the rumors could be coming from. But also, it would kind of make sense. So guys, what do? I don't know whether to believe these rumors, but it would add up and explain where some of this money has got to or why these orders haven't come through. What would you do if you weren't me? Should I try and find evidence or should I just leave it? What should I do? Hope this makes sense, and sorry if this isn't very gossip filled, but I really need advice."
Damn.
Oh my gosh. That's actually crazy, because how do you even, I mean, the private company, I guess you can funnel the money there, but that is bold to be doing that if he is actually doing that. And also, so that's like so ethically wrong, because I swear like so much funding usually comes from pots from people who fundraise for, like my institution, for example, is based around COPD and cancers and stuff. So like we actually get some of our funding from people who want to give us money to invest in like the research, because they have like an emotional vested interest in it. So depending on
Yeah.
what lab she works for, that is so deep if they're doing that.
That's literally the exact same for me. Like my salary is literally paid by like a charity set up by 2 people who have MND. So that's actually so true. But I have actually heard about a very similar scenario to this, where there was another PI at another university who was actually doing this, and he also had private companies. So this could actually be something that happens quite common in academia, which is
What?
mad
But
actually
then
when you think about
you're
it.
affecting your own research, like your own academic research records, because you're not going to have published papers. So he's just like
I mean, it
burning
depends, I
his
guess,
own.
because he could necessarily still be getting publications though. Depends how much money he's actually taken from this project, and then also how many other projects he's got going on and what his private companies are doing. Like if
True.
they're doing enough and you've got so much science going on, like, and you've got so many projects going on, then yeah, there's definitely some people who would just still takes that money, some of that money for themselves.
You know what? I don't think this can be just applied to science as well and like receiving grants, because people who work in like HR for certain other companies, they get like big budgets for like certain projects and things like that. So easily could be happening in other sort of areas
Oh yeah, 100%.
as well. Because I sometimes see these grants come in and I'm like, a £5 million grant. Obviously, that's multiple years worth of work, but £5 million, I'm literally like, please, can I have some? And this PI is obviously
Can
just
I have
doing
some,
that.
please? That's what I'm saying. And there's some people who literally wouldn't think twice about taking a few £1,000 from that.
But what advice? Like, should they like believe the rumors? Should they dig? Should they try and figure it out? Or do they straight up ask the PI like, bro, why have
Oh
we
my
not
God,
got...
no.
Well, first of all, just asking like, I need to be seeing my equipment come in. Like, I can't do anything until this equipment arrives or what I need.
But then if it's not like necessary equipment, they haven't said if it's like necessary, like if they need it, or if it was just like maybe an upgrade on a piece of equipment, or it's like, you know, sometimes I imagine you guys have got this where you'll say to your PI like, oh, I need this to do XYZ. And then they'll be like, oh, well, we don't have the money to do that, or why don't you do it this way? Like there's always ways around,
Yeah, but it sounds
or
like
other methods to achieve similar things.
it should be on order, right? And then it's just not coming.
Yeah.
And then he's blaming it. He's like lying outright, being like, oh, maybe it's the companies, maybe it's the postal service. So it's not like he's saying, look, I haven't got the money for it. He's just outright lying.
Just saying that it's not been delivered. Well, then follow it up. Find out why it's not been delivered, you know? She said she's checked some like invoices and orders attached to the lab, and she said things aren't adding up. So I'm guessing the orders don't actually exist.
Good point.
I think it depends like how much you want to get involved, because like I feel like this is a common theme on our podcast, right? It's like, how far do you want to go? Do you want a job where you're just like, I'm just gonna coast, like I don't want to get too emotionally invested in everything, or do you want to actually get to the bottom of this because like this is your job and like I don't know, you have like proper vested interest in it, but in the same breath, by doing that you could jeopardize, I guess, your position at work. So it's like a really tricky like balance. But I think personally, if you were like, right, I'm gonna actually get to the bottom of this and I'm pretty confident about it, I guess there would be ways of trying to get like a external auditor to come in, because surely they must do that, right, at some points. So I think a lot of the time audits are done internally when it comes to the science field, but if there was like a way of getting an external audit, then the PI will be sweating hot under his collar, sweating it out.
Yeah, but then how are you gonna get it without letting the PI know that you've requested an external audit? Because then they'll be like, why you request, do you know what I mean?
Well, you could be honest, you could be like, things just aren't adding up, like and you could pretend like
true.
it's not,
It's
they
someone
have no
else.
idea.
Oh my God, she should go to him and be like, listen, I feel like something's dodgy going on
Gotta play the
here. Like, do you
game.
think we should get an auditor? And then
Yeah.
see how he reacts. Like, is he sweating?
That's
Is
funny.
he,
Yeah.
imagine,
Is he sweating?
is he sweating, or is he like on board and he's like, yeah, you're right, we need to figure out where this money's going? And I feel like you'll probably just learn a lot from his reaction anyway.
Yeah, good point.
And then that will either like maybe prompt him to stop, or he will just ignore it, and then you can be like, look, it is carrying on. So I think we really need to think about an external audit. I've already spoken to so and so, and then that's
Ooh,
it.
that's a
That's
good
done
one.
now.
Do you guys think that would be possible though? I mean, like I said, I have actually heard a case of someone doing something like this, but like I don't really know how it works, because obviously we will say we get a grant to do something. Like normally it's for, we're either paying to access someone else's data or we're paying to like generate data. So I'm not involved on that whole side of ordering any like you guys have to like order your own stuff. You order your own reagents, you order your own consumables and things like that. Do you think someone could genuinely get away with that, like with actually funneling grant money quite easily, or no?
I don't think so, because usually
Maybe.
like you never really see Well, unless you're in like the finance department, you never really see or have direct access to the money, I feel. We have
Yeah,
like a
true.
lab
But
Good point.
if you're
credit
paying it,
card.
if you've got a private company and you're paying it into a private company and you just tell the finance
Yeah.
department,
No,
like,
but you
oh, it's
can't.
to pay for this. Because the
Nah, I
finance
don't think so.
company,
'Cause
like,
the finance.
they're just there to help with the finances. They don't actually, if you're literally paying it to a scientific company, how are they going to know what you're
No,
paying
because I
them
think
for?
any grant money would have to go into the university and go into the like actual finance team
Yeah, but
within
you
the
tell the finance
academic
people, like, this is
establishment.
what I want to spend the money on, don't you?
Yeah, but you raise POs. Well, that's how we do it.
Yeah, so
So
you
it
could do
goes
it
through
all.
finance.
Yeah, that's my point. Finance wouldn't check what you're, like, they wouldn't
Oh,
be like,
you
oh,
mean
yeah, we
like
want to
invoicing
see.
from your private company rather
Yeah.
than
Yeah,
from, say,
yeah,
like a scientific
yeah.
company? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like,
You
well,
could
didn't
get away
this
with that,
kind
do
of
you think?
happen with the PPE scandals with the Tories during COVID? Because they were like basically invoicing themselves loads of PPE and it was millions of pounds. And then they were getting like loads of government money because apparently they were making this PPE and they actually really weren't. Or it was just worse quality than they claimed. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened.
Yeah,
So
something
they
like
could
that. I do
definitely
remember
do that.
yeah. Oh my God, that's actually mad. So what should she do then? Do the external audit option? What if she doesn't want to do that?
I don't think external audit, that just gets messy. I think just say to him, look, like I've still not got this stuff. I'm going to call the companies direct and see what's happening with my order. Can you let me know the order number of
Good
these
idea.
things? And if he's
Good
fumbling
idea.
then to be like, be like, well, maybe like I understand like if you've been busy and you didn't put this one through, but like maybe I can sit with you to see what you're doing and then I'll take these jobs off you and like I'll start ordering. And then like maybe you've kind of taken a loss because the money has gone or some money's gone, but then from that point on, hopefully like you can order things in. Or I'd say
That's
take
a
it
really
up
good
like
idea.
up the chain in the university system or institute that you're at and just be like, we're not getting things ordered. Is there a way to like monitor where the money's going or like why we haven't received X, Y, and Z yet? 'Cause surely there's like lab support, tech support, something like that.
But I guess as well, it depends what you want to do to interfere, right? Do you just want your experiment to go back on track and you just want these orders in?
You just want your
Or
equipment.
do you want to like prevent the grant money from being siphoned off to your PI's personal bank account? So where do you want to interfere? Where do you want to draw the line? That's what I kind of meant
Yeah, because for me
earlier.
personally, like, maybe the moral thing is to like make sure that it's investigated further. But I can't lie, me personally, I just want to get my experiments done because I'm not getting involved in that personally. I'm not being paid enough. And secondly, other people should, there should be some kind of system that stops that from happening. I just wouldn't be getting involved. I just want my experiments done. So I'd do what Yaz says and I'd go and be like, can I have the order number so I can follow it up? That's a good one. I like that.
I think I would do what I've said, like maybe do what Yas said to like feel it out and maybe say to the PI, really not sure where this money's going, just to like see their reaction. And then if it continues to happen and this grant money is just going somewhere, then I would probably report it to higher up and then maybe push the route of an external audit, because you can do that, like you can get auditors in if you're like suspicious about something. But I think in reflection of what you said, Liv, it's above our pay grade, so you'd have to like report it and like kind of trust that they would then do something about it, you know, like through an external audit or something. So, and I feel like they take grant money really seriously, right? So they're not going to want that to go anywhere else but making like publications and stuff. So
But also mad if this is like actually happening and that the PI is funneling his money from the grants into his private company. Like, where are your morals?
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, come on,
Yeah.
mate. Is your company performing that badly that you can't even get investors or money?
Savage.
Like,
so
should you even have a
risky.
private company? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised though. I think it happens quite often. I'm not gonna lie.
Bro, people are messed up. Can I say that?
Yeah, because it's true.
That's a great
It's true.
summary.
Like, people are just messed up. But as always, this is just another one of them stories where we really want you to come back and update us because I want to know what's going on here.
Yeah, thanks so much to the listener for writing in. And again, we are so sorry that you experienced this kind of stuff within the academic world. hopefully this stuff is going to eventually stop. Or with the help of us three, we can give some good advice. Obviously, don't take our advice, like, you know, take it with a pinch of salt, because sometimes we're just like as unsure as you are. But hopefully it's helpful. And thanks, Liv. That was actually really juicy to read out. So I very much enjoyed that piece of goss. So that rounds off episode 4 of the So Cultured Season 3 podcast. And if you want to learn anything else about the science that we've been talking about today, we will, of course, link the science and the links in the description. And don't forget, we are now clued up and we know that we can include the LaboraTEA link in the description of the episode. So if you have some tea or some advice that you need help with, then please do submit via the link. It is anonymous. We will not know who you are, but we are always happy to read your stories. And Liv, do you want to tell us what you're going to be talking about next week?
Yeah, so I kind of hinted at it earlier, but I'm very excited because next week we are going to be talking all about the Star Wars franchise. We are going to explore the world of lightsabers, the Force, and the physics in Star Wars. So I am very excited for that. So we will see you all next week. And thanks for joining us for today's episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You've been listening to the So Cultured podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Make sure you listen in next week for more science and tech updates and the hottest LaboraTEA.
You can stay up to date with us in between episodes by following us on Instagram and X at So Cultured Podcast.
See you back here, same time next week.
So give me all. I'll take it to Mars. Oh, I'll stick like glue inside your mind. Just watch me break it.